Okay, so how's everybody doing? So I want to talk to you about airbrushes for a minute here, and the point of this is to show you how easy it really is. Because I hear people, like I watch YouTube, I listen to podcasts, I hear people that are afraid, like they're good modelers, but they're just afraid of an airbrush, okay? And as I put this one back together, this is my my old siphon feed Vega 2000, and like look at the plunger, how bent it is. Like, see that? Like, you wouldn't believe the mileage I have on this, and it's the same tip too. Man, this airbrush has served me well over the years. Of course, I have a half a dozen or so of them, but this is one of my favorites. Okay, and look at the tip. It's like a finishing nail. I love this airbrush. Would I paint my prized IPMS show JU88 camouflage? No, but I'll use it for basic bulk work and terrain, etc., and models. Like I painted the whole carrier and the engine basically with this airbrush. So you just saw that I slipped the needle in there, right? Okay, this little locking screw that you see here, this is only really to take the needle out and clean it. Like, if it's a single action without this pullback feature, like see how that pulls back the needle? Like that's what the trigger, like I just call this the trigger, and this the on-off switch for air. Like, that pulls that back to let the paint come out. Like, if you go all the way, you'll drain the cup in 5 seconds. If you go just a tiny bit, you'll drain the cup in 5 minutes, like, you know, roughly, right? So you don't set this needle part way and then lock it in, because you can control it with the trigger. But you would with a single action, though, because you don't have this ability, right? With a single action, it's just on-off air like this. But you would just pull this out a tiny bit and then lock it in until you got some paint, and then you're stuck with whatever that pattern is or whatever. Like, you can't control the amount of paint or the needle clearance or tolerance in the orifice of the tip of the airbrush, okay? So what I do with a dual action like this is I just push like I clean everything, I push the needle all the way in and then just tighten it down. So now I can, well, I don't even need to do air. I can just pull it back, see? Okay, so here is what you need to know to help you simplify it. Now, I have a cut that I did kind of in the moment. I'm going to show it like after this. It wasn't meant to be, I didn't choreograph it as a video, but I thought it was kind of good because it was in the moment, and I'm going to show you that at the end to close. But I thought I would summarize the basic fundamentals and operation of an airbrush just to demystify or debunk the sort of black art mythology that surrounds these things, because they're really not complicated to use, and the more you use them, the better you get at it. So basically, this is an on-off switch, right? Like your air. Hear this? It's on-off. Like, you can't control the air. Like, you can only turn the air on like a light switch and then turn it off. Except with an airbrush, the first thing you do is you flick the light switch on and you keep it on at all times. Like, you just bury the thing. Like stomp on the throttle on your car and see how fast it goes, right? Like, stomp on this and it'll only go as fast as the air pressure that you regulate down on your compressor. That's another discussion. I use a contractor compressor, like with a tank on it, like a real, you know, you can buy them for, I don't know, $149 or something at a tool place. The first thing that will revolutionize your airbrushing is get a quiet, like Makita makes one. I'm really tempted to get it, even though mine is fairly quiet. It's only like, I don't know, $199. It's got a tank and it's whisper quiet. It's beautiful. But anyway, you need a good compressor, and then you get your hose and your fittings are all there, and you get those and you hook up your airbrush, and you got air without the airbrush turning on. I got a tank I can drain from, like, for a long time, you know. So air on, off, right? Now what you do is you just hold it down, and then you always keep it down, but you just pull this back and your paint comes on. Like, you never go all the way back unless you want to flush the needle, like on the go, like on the side, which I'll show you following this. Okay, so that's what dual action is, air on and then controlling the paint. That's the second action. The first is on-off switch air and then variable paint. And I never get past like a hair, usually. Unless I clear coat or flat coat, then I really pull it back a lot if I want to lay it on heavy or, you know, or whatever. But basically when I paint, like you'll see, I'll show it with green paint. I'll talk to you about paint before we jump into that. So dual action, right? So it can be siphon feed or gravity feed. It's up to you. don't poo-poo on these siphon feeds. They're good airbrushes. Like I use this mostly all the time. Like, can anyone tell? Like if I didn't tell you, like, did you use a siphon feed or a gravity feed to paint that tank with, or that plane or whatever? Well, you don't know. Like nobody knows that but you, right? So you just use whatever you're comfortable with, but you don't need an expensive airbrush to be a good airbrusher, you know, okay? So like I say, this is owned by Badger now, I think, and I love this thing, and it's starting to wear the tip out a bit. It sprays a little bit on an angle, but I'll mention that, I'll show you that. Okay, so I'm just going to put this aside and just explain to you one quick important thing if you're starting out. Get a bottle of Tamiya, I use deep green for this one. Get a big bottle like this, like the thinner. Like you can get these X28 thinner like in these jars, and then dump this into another container and use it as a paint bottle. Like look at the pigment there, like see that? What's the ratio there, you think? How much pigment to 99% isopropyl alcohol do you think there is there? That's at least 80-20, right? I would even say probably 85-15 pigment, right? Like these come half filled, like they're solid pigment, okay? So you should be able to make like 5 to 6 times the volume, easy on one bottle, and isopropyl alcohol. Now, why do I have this here? I use this for clear coats and flat coats. I don't want an aggressive 99% alcohol when I do my final clear coats. So this is when I use this, which is a lot more expensive than this, believe me. And the reason why I don't use this as much, because I'm not going to waste my money to clean my airbrush with this. It's so easy to clean your airbrush with isopropyl alcohol. That's half the battle. If you can clean your airbrush or even leave it and then melt it out like later, you're going to use your airbrush way more. That's why I use IPA, and I thin most of my paint with IPA anyway. I don't see any different effects. Okay, so thin paint, so that's what you need. You got to get thin, 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 and more thin, right? Now, we're going to jump to that video clip to end this clip, and I'm going to show you how much fun you can have, and that you should always practice on the side when you're painting your model. And thin your paint, get a good compressor, use cheap isopropyl alcohol. To me, a paint or alcohol friendly, I don't know the other ones very well, but because I'm locked on this paint because I think it's the best, in my opinion, it's the best acrylic paint in the world from Japan, okay? That's just my opinion, but hey, you can make your own opinion or use whatever paint you want. So let's dive in, have a look at it, and let's demystify this, and I hope that it encourages you to pick up that airbrush and to start practicing, okay? Less is better, right? It's always tempting to just keep pushing. You know, the airbrush is cool. It's always cool. Like I've been using an airbrush for, I don't know, over 40 years, and I still have to say, okay, now take it easy, right? Like I know you're having fun, but don't overdo it, right? Try to learn to, okay, so I'll just throw this in now because I know I hear people talk about like they panic, like they try to get into airbrushing and they, oh, it's just like a spray bomb, you know. No, this is, look, fully down, right? On, off. All the air is, like don't think in your mind that this is variable air, because it's not. It's on, off, on, off, on, off. Now, if it's a single action, which means you won't be able to do this, right, to control the needle going in and out for the paint flow, that you can control with a dual action. With a single action, you would adjust the needle manually back here so that when you went like this, there would always be paint coming out. But the dual action, there's none. So here's the thing, right? So when you're like that, now watch, I'm just gonna, tiny bit, I'm gonna pull my trigger back. Watch, see it coming out? Okay, I'm gonna hold it, I'm gonna freeze my finger there. You'll get used to it, like muscle memory. See, look at that. That's what you want, right? And if you get a little bit of clog or other, this is what I love about IPA, is it doesn't dry or clog tips like people think. And if it does, because it's such heavy IPA content, just go like this to clear it. Floor it a couple times, and now it's cleared out and it's lubed up. And then just always be practicing the splatter. Splatter it away first, like get that off, and then start on paper like this and get a feel, and then lock your finger in. And then after a while, like you're bottomed out, always bottom out your air and only pull back a tiny bit. And then get in close like this and then start, bring it back a bit. It's coming, just wait. Okay, there it is. So now I'm just gonna start working it like this, look. See that? There's no, but look what happens when I pull back too much. Oh, right? So it's just a matter of practicing, and everyone's the same, like no matter who you are. Like, it's just that the learning curve shrinks when you practice more. And then eventually you'll just come into a model like this and you go like this, you know, and then you just come in and you just start doing this, watch. Okay, I'm just gonna get in there like this, right? I wanna do this little line here. I'm gonna cut in a little bit around that head there in that oil pan. I wanna get some grime and some rust in there and run a line down here, a shadow. And I don't like those little pointy edges there. So I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to blend some of that away. See, this is all one color paint, but look at the value, right? So watch. Okay, see that? Now watch this. See how there's no halo in the center? Because I'm tiny amount, right? Okay. Be like, have fun, like do this all the time. Like just do it all the time. I do it all the time. I never take it for granted that I've mastered an airbrush because it's another tool. That's all it is, right? Okay.